I'm about to show you guys the steps I take my clients through to relieve their back pain that they're feeling on the bike, because it's the worst. I've felt it in the past. I know exactly what you're going through. It's like when you get pain on the bike, you cannot enjoy anything else that's going on. It is debilitating. It could be perfect weather, the perfect route, you could be on perfect equipment, but if your body has pain, that's all you're gonna be thinking about. So let's start with some simple explanation of why the heck you're probably experiencing this. The most common back pain I hear of people experiencing is just low back pain. Now, sometimes it can be singled out on one side more than another, but let's just say for this video, we're talking about the entirety of your low back, because the way we would fix that is also the way you would fix just one side in particular. So you are feeling your low back lighting up. The thing that's happening is that the muscles in your low back, very likely, again, most of the time. Should I do my doctor's warning right here? You could always visit a doctor, get it checked out. There could be some extreme case where you have a bulging disc or some underlying injury that I would have no idea about. I'm just telling you, this is the vast majority. And honestly, even if you went through PT for a lot of this stuff, you'd probably end up doing a variation of these exercises anyways. So use it at your own risk. I think this is gonna be helpful, but let's try this out. So low back, it's lighting up. What's likely happening is that because of the poor position that you're in on the bike for hours and hours and hours, driving power through your leg over and over again, you're going to be losing engagement in your core. You're going to be using your hip flexors a lot, and they're gonna be getting tight, and your glutes might slowly be losing strength over time. Now, this is the repetitive motion that you're in, which means that over time, instead of these muscles firing and protecting your low back like they're designed to do, your low back starts compensating for your lack of core engagement and your lack of glute engagement. And as your hips get tighter and tighter, there's more tension on your low back because it's trying to pull your hips underneath. Because the hip flexors, the way that they bend, when they get shorter, it doesn't want your butt or your back to extend to neutral. So it's harder to even get core engagement because of this like snowball effect. You're losing core engagement, your hips get tighter, you're losing glute engagement, and pretty soon the low back is doing all the work, which it's not designed to do, and now you have back pain. So the first step to relieving the pain is to get those muscles that are compensating, AKA overworked, overtired, overstrained, to get them to relax a little bit. We have to let them loosen up, literally, so that you can actually get the muscles you want engaged. Because if you don't first make those muscles relax, they might continue to compensate, and you might not hit the muscles that you really want to do. So grab a foam roller, get on the ground. We're gonna do a windshield wiper. This is gonna feel good if you have back pain or if you don't have back pain, but I want you to keep some core engagement as you go back to the ground. Shoulder blades go on the ground, plant your feet. Now, this roller is right above my tailbone or my belt line. From this position, I'm just gonna relax on the ground, and I'm gonna drop my knees to one side, and I'm gonna keep my feet on the ground. So they're not planted, but they're on the ground. I just drop my knees over. Oh my gosh, there's two things happening right now. I'm almost giving a massage-like effect to my low back. It's hitting my QL, this muscle in your low back that's probably really tense, and I'm also stretching this top hip. So this is a double whammy because I'm getting the overcompensating muscle to relax, and I'm also lengthening the hip flexor that's probably a little bit tight. So I'm there, I slowly roll to the other side. Oh, I feel the stretch, I feel the pressure on my low back in a good way. Obviously, if there's pain, you wanna stop. It should feel that good pain, you know, like that you can breathe through it. It's almost like you're getting a massage. Now I'm gonna speed up, going side to side. And that right there is going to help mobilize your hips and relieve some of your low back tightness. Now, the reason we start with this is because, again, you have to loosen up those compensating muscles first, and loosen up is a term you can go 1,000 ways with, but you gotta get those things to relax so that by the time we get to our activation, there's less interference. For example, I had debilitating IT band pain to the point where I'm limping out of bed. It's horrible. It was after this ACL injury, and I could not basically get my hip to activate the way I needed to, my glute medius. So I'm gonna show you right now, clamshells. So One of the exercises that fixes it is doing this, as lame as it looks with some band tension. If I didn't first start by rolling the side of my leg, which technically doesn't lengthen your IT band, but if I didn't start with this, when I got to that position of the clamshells, my leg was still so tight from the compensating I had been doing that all I could feel was my leg. I couldn't even get to my hip. But if I started by rolling, getting these muscles to relax, and then I used my hip, I could actually feel my glute medius, which is the muscle I wanted. So that's why we start with a foam roller on your back, doing the windshield wipers, because if we don't get things mobilized a little bit, there's a good chance it's gonna be harder to activate our core and harder to activate our glutes. Which takes us to the next step. You guessed it. You have to learn how to activate your core. We're gonna do that with a posterior tilt. So foam roller goes to the side. You're going to lay on your back. Now the goal for you here is gonna be learning how to take this gap that naturally occurs from just a neutral spine and pressing it into the floor. Now you're gonna do this by tilting your hips back towards you. That's why it's called posterior tilt of your pelvis, because your pelvis is literally tilting backwards toward your posterior. So you're here, you're going to engage your low abs, tuck the hips, and push your low back into the ground. You should feel tension right here, and then you relax, create the arch, and then you close it again. So what this is doing, it's building the neural adaptation or the mind-muscle connection for your body to tuck the hips and get core engagement, which is really important for getting your low abs engaged. Now, after you do this movement, we're gonna want to make sure we get your glutes engaged. So we're gonna do a simple glute bridge. You don't even have to move. You just push through the heels, squeeze your butt cheeks together, close them up, press your hips to the sky until you feel a nice little stretch in your hips. If you're really mobile, you don't have to go too far past parallel right here. Go back down, tap, squeeze your butt, drive up. You should feel the hamstrings a little bit. Now, after doing 10 reps of the posterior tilt and 10 reps of the glute bridge, following the windshield wipers, I would honestly be surprised if you didn't notice a little bit of relief in your back, because what you're doing is relaxing and getting the muscles that should be doing the work that your low back's compensating for engaged now that they're firing. So once you get those 3 steps down, we have 2 next phases to make sure that we can lock this activated core and the activated glutes in so that it can be autonomous, so you don't have to think about it 24/7. So here's the next step. Now you can use a wall or anything you can really tap your butt up against that's not gonna move, but what you're gonna wanna do is step maybe a foot away from it and reach your butt back until you feel like you're almost gonna lose balance. And that is going to allow us to hinge as far as possible and really get the glute engagement that we want. If you're too close, it's not gonna really work. You gotta reach for it. So by you reaching your butt back, you're going to be hinging at your hip. And as long as you maintain a neutral spine, it's likely you'll be doing this correct. So to maintain a neutral spine, it just means I don't want my back to round as my hips go backwards. So my hips go back. I'm basically keeping my shoulders retracted. I'm gonna reach my arms out for a counterbalance. I'm gonna reach back. And once I touch, you guys can see, look at my toes. I'm basically like wiggling them. All the weight is almost in my heels. And I touch my butt on the dumbbells or the wall that you're using. I squeeze my glutes together and drive my hips back up. Now, you learning this movement pattern is important because we're gonna wanna emulate this somewhat on the bike. Getting into this position, having range of motion in our hips, hopefully they're more open in the front, and now you have glute engagement even in this stretched out position. Now the last thing that's important while you do this is to make sure your core is engaged. Something about core engagement that people don't think about enough is that it's not an on or off switch. It is a dimmer. Your core should be somewhat engaged almost any time that you're standing. So for you to learn how to brace your core and not have it turned on 100%, you know, this would be like if I'm about to punch you in the stomach, which I would never do, I don't think. But if I was about to, you would fully tighten up your core and that would be 100% engaged versus completely on your back. Back is arched like we showed earlier, and your stomach is open and you're basically you just ate Thanksgiving dinner, that would be core fully off, okay? So you wanna be able to work in between that. You know, when you're walking around, you could have maybe 10% core engagement, just a little light brace. So this is you just pulling in your stomach slightly. This could be just having some inner abdominal pressure with your breath. There's a lot of ways to learn it, and I should probably do just a full separate video on it. But just remember, your core can be on 30% for your entire ride. And it's just not gonna be that constant contraction. So keep it in mind. We want light core engagement, and we want you to be able to move through this range of motion while keeping some of it. Now, the last phase of the process of you getting rid of this back pain is for you to start loading up these positions and getting strong enough that your core can hold and maintain those positions while you're on the bike. So we're gonna do that by grabbing some dumbbells, and I'm gonna show you a couple examples of movements that you can integrate into a strength training program and why they make such a difference long-term for your back health and getting out of pain. So we're gonna grab dumbbells. This could honestly be, this could be a barbell, this could be a trap bar, this could be kettlebells. We're gonna do that same hip hinge pattern, but now we're loaded. So for you, you're here. I'm gonna show you from the side. You're just going to hinge back. It's the same movement pattern. I get tension in my hamstrings and my glutes. I squeeze my butt, driving it back to the top. But this extra bit of load is now ensuring that I'm getting stronger, and I'm gonna be able to hold that position without really thinking about it, because we don't want the back pain to come back. And it means you're gonna have to keep going with all of this stuff, but do it a lot less, if that makes sense. So another example of a movement. Think about a renegade row. We're here, wide position. I'm gonna pull right here. This, for someone with back pain, is like their worst nightmare. If you don't have engaged glutes and engaged core for this renegade row, you're just gonna hurt your back. But if things are working properly, and as they should be after going through those movement patterns and those steps in that order, by the time you get to here, you're actually feeling your core, you're feeling your glutes, and it's not bad to feel or train your back, but it shouldn't be the limiting factor. Like that should really be the difference. You can strengthen your low back, but if your low back is the thing that makes you want to put the weight down, there's probably something not going right. As a general rule of thumb, just keep that in mind. There are movements you can isolate your low back, but for the most part, if you're doing a renegade row and you have back pain, you're gonna know it really quick. So that movement and a lot of total body movements you can do. I mean, shoot, even like some kind of lawnmower row or a single arm press. These are all, one leg. These are all examples of power transfer. When you're on the bike, even though some people don't want to admit it, you use your whole body. There's a reason you have handlebars. You have 5 points of contact on your bike. You use all of them. Good riders use all of them. You can't go sprint on your bike without ripping on the bars properly. So keep that in mind. This is all power transfer. And when you train it off of the bike, you have the ability to do it in a safe condition. So when you go out on the bike, you can just perform. Like, you don't have to constantly remind yourself or avoid something that's gonna cause pain because you're not training off the bike. I don't know. Did I convince you? I really hope this helps. I've helped, gosh, I wanna say hundreds of people specifically with this. I've gotten a lot of testimonials of people implementing it, and it really works for the majority of people, myself included. So I would encourage you to step through this process, and I know that over time you'll be able to just focus more on strength training than the rehab stuff. And hopefully you'll get to the point where if you feel back pain on your ride, during a ride, it should just be a cue that you're not engaging your core enough, because I still have to remind myself at times. And when you feel the back pain, you can say, oh, I need to tighten it up a little bit. I've been a little sloppy. And once you make that change, it goes away and you won't have to deal with it on rides. But I'd be crazy not to say that there is a full guided routine of what we just went through and more on the website that you could add into a program. We have these guided workouts. They're single guided workouts. So for someone who wants to do a full strength program and put an emphasis on their low back pain, you could just add this workout to your calendar on top of the gravel program or on top of the kettlebell program, like a lot of people do. So go and use it, dialedhealth.com, and the link's in the description. If you have another movement that's really helped you in your back pain, please let me know in the comments. make sure you're subscribed to the channel, and we're gonna pump out another video really, really soon for you guys. So until next time, start moving forward. I know, did you notice that thing? You see it? It's kind of camoed in, all the black and the gray. Look at this beautiful tarmac. Come on, people. Oh, here, I'll give you drive side. This bike might be my favorite bike ever. I recently got the newest Tarmac SL7 Pro, and this thing is pretty much stock, with the exception of a couple little extra bling components, but this thing's beautiful. I recommend it to anybody. It just feels fast, it feels comfortable. I've been doing 100-mile rides or more on it every single weekend for the past month, training for Unbound. I just couldn't be happier, so had to bring it up. Specialized, thank you for your support. They're awesome partners of mine, and they allow me to really just do a lot of things that I do. So thank you, Specialized, and if you guys are looking for a road bike, highly recommend Tarmac.